Good evening. This is the Lake Bluff School District 65 Board of Education regular meeting, November 13th, 2012. Shall we say the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Al, can we have roll call?
Mary Jane Brady.
Present.
Terry Carney.
Present.
Al Fivehouse. Present. Eric Wagner.
Present.
Ann Charlotte. Present. Mark Berry.
Present.
Susan Ryder. Absent.
Okay, so are we going to do reports this evening?
Do reports
Prior
first,
to communication?
prior to communication from visitors. So we'll start with superintendent's report. I just have a couple items. First of all, as I stated this morning, there was a very nice article, I believe it was in the Patch, regarding our Lake Bluff Middle School elections that were held on Election Day. The results came in at approximately 1 o'clock. Actually, Mr. Blackmer tweeted the results along with sending them out. And at 1 o'clock, the middle schoolers had announced that Obama had won at the middle school. And this was, I think it was several decades worth of correct predictions from our middle school kids. He did share with me that I wanted to share with all of you. There were several people that wanted to vote late. And just like in real life, those students were not allowed to vote because the polls were closed. So it was a nice article and really exciting things going on at our middle school. I've been attending quite a few emergency meetings on pension reform. I will keep you all updated over that. There's going to be a lot of discussions between now and January 2nd. But we're all going to need to stay on our toes and be prepared because there will be some form of pension reform coming through. In the past couple of weeks, I have attended several community meeting membership organizations, and I just wanted to share with all of you, I'm very wowed at the amount of support our kids get in the community. Today we went to, is it LEAD? The LEAD lunch, and the amount of caring and preparation that our community gives students and the social emotional awareness is just inspiring, and it made me wish that I would have had those supports in place when my kids were growing up. So I wanted to share that. The other thing I wanted to mention to you that in the state of Illinois, November 15th has been designated as School Board Members Day in Illinois. And it's a time to show appreciation and begin to better understand how school board members work together to provide leadership for our schools. And as in the newsletter that went out last week, everyone knows that school board members attend meetings, but those hours represent just a fraction of the actual time that they devote to leading their districts.
Oh, thank you.
Right now, as we go through this, our school board members are receiving a certificate, and they're getting their paycheck, which is, what is your paycheck? 100 grand bars.
Oh, we make the big bucks. Thank you.
Seriously, though, they attend many extracurricular events to support schools. They attend seminars to learn how to be better board members. They're involved in community activities, representing themselves, their community, and their district. Many of these school and community-related activities take them away from time that could be spent with their own families. And I was the recipient of that, as my husband sat on several boards, and I know how hard he worked and really worked for different causes that he believed in for our families, community, and for our kids. When it comes to selfless giving, school board members deserve a heartfelt thank you from everyone in the community, because they represent so many different facets of the community. They all have one thing in common, an extraordinary dedication to public education. So it's time we thank them for their untiring efforts. The men and women serving Lake Bluff School District 65 are Mary Jane Brady, who is our president, Terry Carney, our vice president, Al Fivehouse, our secretary, and members Eric Wagner, Leanne Charlot, Mark Berry, and Susan Ryder. So thank you for all you do. And this Thursday, November 15th, is School Board Day. my report, and don't spend all your money in one place.
Great. The only thing that I wanted to say in my report actually goes along with this, to thank the board and to thank the community for the thoughtful conversations we've had the last several months leading up to our levy resolution, which we will be passing this evening. I think we've had a lot of great involvement, and we've had a lot of people being able to offer suggestions and voice their opinions, and I think it's been a good process. So thank everyone, not only for the extra meetings that we've had, but for the extra time, lots and lots of extra time it takes to get through the materials for those meetings. So thank you all. I'm proud to serve with you. Okay, PTO, we have Kate Amaral.
Sorry, I'm losing my voice. Since I have the microphone too, I wanted to thank each of you board members too for serving and all your hard work. We really appreciate it. This is the PTO report for November. The Innisbrook fundraiser is complete, and the order pickup will be tomorrow, November 14th, at the LBMS gym during the holiday boutique from 5:30 to 9 p.m. Spiritware is on sale now in the PTO web store. Orders placed by December 7th will be delivered by December 21st. And that's at www.lb65.org/PTO. The scholastic dollars that we have earned at the book fairs, we've decided to be used to purchase each grade, a student in each grade, a book that is related to that grade's curriculum. We're getting direction from Joanne Trahanis as well as the staff in selecting these books. So far, we've only purchased for first grade. We've purchased the book entitled Wampanoag, which was purchased at the Lake Forest bookstore, as Scholastic only had hardcover reference books on this subject. This was an easy one for us to choose since we know that the first graders are studying the Native Americans and the Wampanoags right now. But we hope to choose books that are appropriate for each grade, as well as continue to support the literacy level book room at the middle school. At LBES, yearbooks are on sale until November 15th in the web store. We have Time Travelers on Monday, November 19th, where the kids will be sort of living a part of a day as a life as a Wampanoag. The second grade is having a social event on Friday, November 30th from 6:30 to 8:30. This will be at the LBS cafeteria, and Robert the Magician will be performing. Siblings are welcome, but please RSVP to Michelle Petrini-Poli so she knows how many people are coming. At LBMS, we have our Dine and Donate this month on Mondays at Innovasi and Moderno, and then Monday through Wednesday at Wisma, they're going to give the middle school PTO 20% back on meals spent, money spent on meals. Please bring the coupon when you dine, though, and that can be found on the PTO website. Also at the middle school, yearbooks are on sale through November 15th, and then the price will be increased. Again, the Holiday Boutique is tomorrow night, November 14th, 5:30 to 9 p.m. We have over 20 vendors, and the elementary school choir is singing, so it should be a very nice evening. We have no PTO meeting in November due to the Thanksgiving holiday, and our next district PTO meeting will be December 19th at 9:30 a.m. in the Public Safety Building. And in case I haven't mentioned it, the Holiday Boutique is tomorrow night, 5:30 to 9 p.m. Thank you.
Thanks, Kate.
Okay, we have our principal reports. Which one of you would like to, well, let's start with elementary. Shelley, ready to roll? Sure. Shelley did pass out her reports to all of you, so you should have a copy.
I love microphones, not really. So you do have a copy in front of you, and I would just share with you that I am the picture taker, so I will include pictures. I probably won't include any words next time. This is a miscommunication on my part. I thought it was still going in the packet, so that's why you have the printed copy in front of you now. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. I just wanted to add one thing, that the elementary is going to be, or has already with the support of Dr. Sophie, sent out several hundred invitations to our senior citizens in the community, inviting them to come to our afternoon programs. We always do a practice program, and it's nice to have an audience. Well, we already have about 500 audience members, but it's nice to have some additional audience members, so those will be going out. If you know of anyone that didn't get one, let us know. You're welcome to look at them. I don't think you qualify, so I'm not going to hand them to you. But we do have some really nice invitations with the help of, actually, Jill Cook and Dr. Sophie. So, do you have any questions?
We got those, my mother lives in there as a senior, got those today.
Okay,
They're already out.
exciting times, really.
Please encourage neighbors and friends to attend that. It's a nice activity, and it gets more of our community members into our schools.
Good evening. It's been a busy month at the middle school, and so I'll highlight a few of the exciting things that have been going on. On November 25th was the first of 3 planned fire drills. I'm pleased to announce that that went very well. The building was completely evacuated in less than 2 minutes, and it was beautiful weather, so we were quite pleased by that. The annual Halloween dance was a huge success. As you may or may not know, students are not permitted to come in costume on Halloween. However, they are required for the Halloween dance later on that Friday evening. We had Michael Phelps, he was present. We had a few bananas, actually, full-size bananas, a bunch of gnomes, and a dishwasher dryer combo, just to name a few of the costumes. So that was very exciting. One thing I also wanted to mention, and this continues as sort of a tradition that we began last year. Once a month, the staff has been getting together on a morning before school, starting at about 7:45, for what we're calling a coffee clatch. And a clatch wasn't a term I was especially familiar with before they organized this, but it's a gathering, and they get together and they drink coffee. And there's usually there's a theme or a topic. And this most recent topic of conversation was to give thanks, sort of, for their favorite teaching. Favorite teachers, and when they spend a lot of time talking about those people that inspired them to become teachers themselves. And so each month we have a different talking point that's discussed during the coffee clatch, and so the most recent one was a lot of fun. Washington, D.C. trip. I would ordinarily be presenting to you and recapping the trip. Unfortunately, this year, because of the hurricane, we had to postpone that trip, and so I wanted to mention that. The trip has now been scheduled for the spring. That's May 16th, 17th, and 18th. Hurricane Sandy obviously created some challenges for travel, and I think it was a good decision to play it safe, to opt for better weather, and so that's what we'll be doing. Airline has taken care of us. We're booked for the new time. The hotel has taken care of us. We're booked for the new time. We're working to acquire reservations for all of the other activities that we'll be doing. Many of those things have been rescheduled. There's still a few that we're hoping will open up for us. These trips book up a year or so in advance, and so there's a lot of scheduling to finagle, but we're working on it. Dr. Sophie already mentioned the mock election, and I appreciate that. And if I could maybe just add a few pieces of my own, it's a full school activity, to say the least. Our 6th grade students are responsible for voter registration, and they took the lead on that as we led up to the election and to the debate. And they made sure to get as many students registered and certainly provide every single student the opportunity who wanted it to register, though we don't force registration, which would be obviously a big part of the lesson. And we did have about 92% of our student population registered to vote. The 7th grade then takes on the role of actually conducting the elections, and they're checking the voter registration cards as kids are coming in to cast their ballots. They're checking those signatures to make sure they're legitimate. They're monitoring the polling places, and really did a great job on election day. And obviously that was November 6th. That the 8th grade's responsibility during the mock election process is actually to research the candidates and to become very well acquainted with their positions on each of the important issues. We have in the past had some students who were really excited about it and maybe took on the role themselves with a panel of folks behind them to help with the fact finding and checking during the debate. This year we actually had 2 teams, one representing the incumbent, one representing Obama, one representing Romney, and they did a very nice job responding during a debate format before all of the students, so they could really listen to all the positions that the candidates are taking, and then we followed that. Of course, with the election, the results were close, and I think Dr. Sophie mentioned Romney was the choice of the student body with 112 votes. I'm sorry, Obama, excuse me, Obama with 112 votes, Romney with 101. So that was a fun day at Lake Bluff Middle School. Thank you very much. Do you have any questions for me?
Nate, I just wanted to add that in case anybody watching the board meeting is curious, that is the Washington DC trip is now the same weekend as the Springfield trip.
That's correct. And so I should maybe thank you for your willingness to help out in that regard. I'll be attending the trip as I usually do with the 8th graders in Washington, D.C. Dr. Sophie will be traveling with our 6th graders to Springfield. So we'll have administrative representation on both of those trips. So thank you, Dr. Sophie.
I'm actually looking forward to it. It'll be a wonderful trip.
Dr. Sophie, can I make an announcement? Yes. Just want to remind the parents in the community that we're having one of our parent series presenters tomorrow night, Dr. Mervyn Berkowitz, and you can go to the PTO boutique beforehand at 5:30 and then go to hear Dr. Marvin Berkowitz talk about parenting for the good, practical advice for parents, and he's going to give you at least 5 things you can do to impact your kid's character. He's a nationally renowned author and speaker, and is coming to us through Charmed and District 67 and 115 and 65, sponsoring him via Deer Path Middle School Auditorium from 7 to 8:30. Hope to see you there.
Thanks, Ann. Okay. Anything else before we move on to communications?
I did want to share one item that is it is new for this board meeting. Now that we have our new website, all of our documents are set up to, as we post a board book, it's automatically shifting over to the website, most of the documents, not all. So on Mondays before board meetings, all of our board packet items will be available to the public so they can print them out or look at them prior to a meeting. Therefore, we won't have any handouts at more board meetings because people can either bring their computers or print the items out ahead of time. Then the following day, all the items that were approved at the board meeting will be posted on the website also. Liz has been working closely with our website person and board book, and it's kind of neat because it just is automatically being linked, the two programs. So you'll see, I think that will really help us with our accuracy, but it will also help us be a lot more transparent to the community for that.
And by the following day, you mean the day after the board meeting when we've approved them the evening
Right.
before, correct?
Right.
One other thing, too, our website looks terrific, and I think my use of it, it's worked well, but we are a work in progress, and I know that there is a note on there that if someone doesn't find something they're looking for, to please send us an email and let us know, if there's a broken link anywhere, or if there's something that we've neglected to make obvious or able to be found easily, please let us know so that we can correct it, put it in more than one place or whatever. So thank you. Okay. Do we have any communications or questions from visitors? No? Okay. Let's move on to our discussion. Our first discussion item is our superintendent evaluation tool regarding our superintendent's performance. I'll start briefly, and then Leanne and Mark were both part of the committee. Each year, our superintendent needs to be evaluated because she has a multi-year contract, so by law, we have to perform an evaluation. We had a superintendent evaluation tool, and we wanted to go through that and see if it was going to be useful for us this year in evaluating Dr. Sophie. As teacher evaluations are changing, this will probably evolve some too, but we took the evaluation form that we had from last year and tweaked it a bit, made it a little bit more user-friendly. We've included in, as part of the evaluation tool, the actual superintendent job description. Other than that, I guess I think we should talk about it, see what people think about it. Mark and Leanne, you may have some other things to add about what we did in terms of changing or some of the discussion that we had about.
Yeah, I mean, I think we looked at it we wanted to make sure it was a workable document, but we also wanted to make sure that didn't change a whole lot because we wanted to be true to what was present when Dr. Sophie came on board. So it wouldn't be fair to have somebody come in with the expectation of using one document and then changing it midstream. So there aren't, I think, huge changes to this, but we also talked about in the future moving more towards what the Illinois Association of School Boards uses. We incorporated some of what we thought was important from that here. So we would look at that and then also coordinating with the principal and teacher evaluations in the future.
I don't have much to add. We did include rating scales from the current principal and teacher evaluations, just to make sure it's consistent from top to bottom in the district. And to reiterate both points made, that it is a work in progress and that we want to revisit it again after the next evaluation and move it closer to, there's an IASB recommended document that is incredibly thorough, that we think is probably a place to head toward. But to Leanne's point, it's too soon to do that now because Jean wasn't hired under those conditions and terms, so.
And that will take some time, too, so we didn't really have time to do that well before it will be evaluation time.
Oh, and
So-
we agreed that it should be an ongoing committee kind of series of meetings.
Exactly, but I think we all agreed this is a very usable document, too, under the circumstances. I mean, we may want to tweak it, like I said, particularly as teacher evaluations change. We did make our rating scale the same as those, as Mark said, but I think we were pretty comfortable, but want to make sure that the board is comfortable with using this as the document, or if it may need some small change, if anybody has suggestions.
I
just have a question. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I was looking at the goals section. It looks like you added some evaluation blocks to sort of focus.
These are actually my contractual goals.
Right.
That I was hired with.
Did we have the superintendent's assessment and board's assessment blocks with each goal?
No.
I was going to say, those look like they were.
Yeah, those were
in terms of
added.
how we approach the goals in the evaluation, and I thought that was a good addition.
We also added this page following the job description. I think it was right out of the IASB recommended document where you talk about items from the job description that the superintendent does best, that are the hardest for, or we find unsatisfactory, just to make sure that that job description is part of the evaluation.
Was the idea that we would all do our own versions of this, or would we come to a consensus document?
Yeah, we said Jean would do her self-evaluation and give it to the board. The board would, members would do their evaluation, and then one person would combine the information. We'd meet and talk about it.
Okay, and
As
so
a-
the single board consensus document is what the actual evaluation is, it's not 7 evaluations.
Well, we would do 7 individual,
7 individuals
meet
that
as
feed
a,
into
meet as a
one.
group.
And then one person would tabulate those, and then we would sit and speak as a group about the tabulated evaluation to make sure that we agree that that's what the final document should be.
And when would that process take place then?
I think if I remember correctly, we said we would start in January to finish by February.
Okay.
So start mid-January.
And then we can have, you'll need to have a meeting to meet, or it could be tagged at the end of one of our meetings. And then hopefully the February meeting, we would have a session where we talk and go through it.
Looks pretty
Other
good.
questions or comments?
I thought the document was very workable and usable. But I always believe at the end of the day, it's not just a document, it's really the way you approach it and make sure that you approach it with the intent that what these evaluations are really for is to help Jean improve on anything that she needs to improve on. So this is not a witch hunt, it's not a slap you on the back kind of thing. This is really intended to help, for us to provide feedback to you so that you can do even a better job than you're doing already. And I think if we do it seriously and take our due diligence on it and give it a lot of thought, I think you'll get invaluable information from it, and you'll even have a better opportunity as a superintendent Lake Bluff in the years to come.
And that's how we're approaching administrator and teacher evaluation, is really looking and coaching so that everyone can do better in areas where they either feel that they need to have an improvement or need to have an improvement from their supervisors. So it really should all be aligned. It should be, and that's why I felt very strongly that I would have the same ratings that the teachers and the administrators would have. I think that's very important.
Of course, sometimes it's not just about improving, it's about, emphasizing what you're doing well as well, and just tell you to continue to do it as well.
That's true, too.
It's always a two-way street.
Anything else?
So when are we going to finalize it, since you don't have any more feedback per se?
I think if there aren't any changes, any suggested changes to it, this will be the document.
Okay.
I shouldn't say I think, if there are no changes, this will be the document.
And we'll start in January. So,
Great.
thank you.
Great. Okay, so we are moving on to fiscal year 2013 School District Library Grant Program application.
And this is something that will not be approved, it just needs to be the minutes need to reflect that we discussed it. So Ann is going to share a couple things regarding that.
This library grant is an annual grant that the board hears about. It brings us a total of $721 that we can spend on books, magazines, any print material, and/or digital material. It's run through the Secretary of State's office, and we are all set to go. Now that we've had board discussion, it'll be mailed tomorrow. We'll get the funds, and the librarian will spend. The two library media specialists will take care of making sure that money is spent.
And every year, do we spend all the money we get?
Absolutely.
That's the total for both schools.
Right, or maybe two.
I think it was not quite this much last year.
Thank you, Ann.
Is there a formula on how you determine how much you're eligible for, or is it?
It's an amount per student. It's based on a dollar amount per student.
Okay.
And the term,
Or pennies a
A
month.
cents amount per student.
Pennies per month.
and it's a grant we're awarded, not that we request, it's just, you're told it's X amount of dollars, and that's
So
what you
does every
apply.
district get them?
Yes.
Is it paid on time?
Yes. Because it runs through the Secretary of State's office, not the State Board of Education. I have no idea why.
I know, that is interesting.
I guess Secretary of State, is he the state librarian or something? I don't know.
Says at the state library.
Oh, it is, it does say that, yes.
Yeah, that's.
Yes.
Anytime we can put more books in front of our kids is it's a
Absolutely.
great thing. So.
Absolutely. Okay, so we had to discuss it, which is what we need to do for the requirements, so that's all we need to do for that. Okay? Debt service abatement.
Well, Jane is going to talk to you a little bit more about the debt service abatement issue that we talked about. Basically, we had talked about 4, 3, 2, or 1 years as far as putting money aside and paying off our debt. She's presented on it, so really, we had talked, she would like to do the resolution at the December meeting, so we need some kind of guidance. It appears, so I'm going to start with what it appears to us. It appears to us that you would like to all do 1 year this year until the strategic plan is done. You want to add anything to that?
No. That's it. I mean, we need direction because we do need to have council draw up the resolution to be specific in what we want to do. So the board just needs to provide direction on what their comfort level is for this year for abating a debt service payment, whether it's just 1 year only for now and look at it again in the future, or to make a commitment, and I'm not sure of where all 7 are. It's your discussion to have.
To summarize, we did have a fairly lengthy discussion about this at our committee, the whole meeting, and it seemed at the end of the meeting that our general consensus was that we all feel that we probably, at the end of our strategic planning, will be making a multi-year commitment to several things, probably levy and tax abatement, but that since we're at the early information gathering stages of our strategic plan, that it would seem that while we are on the verge of a large planning document, that making a one-year commitment now while we're thinking about a multi-year is the appropriate thing to do. That there's no reason that we can't at any point in time make a commitment for longer than that, but that we need to make a decision about what we're going to do so that we can file the appropriate papers with the county to abate the debt service for this year. That I believe is my correct summary of the consensus, but please, anybody, questions or comments or any other direction that we may give?
I would agree with that summary. I would also further point out that we, during that discussion, made a decision on the levy that would impact taxpayers immediately. And so when we get to that discussion, it's an important additional factor we took into account when we decided, let's make a decision now for 1 year for the abatement, and a significant commitment on the levy as well. And then after we have a strategic plan in place, we'll be better positioned to thoughtfully commit future boards to that abatement number for many years to come.
Or at least several years to come. Perhaps not many, but the next few.
Few. Couple.
I would just add a couple thoughts to that, just for clarification. We had significant conversation about it. Just if anybody, not too many people got to see that conversation, but it was one of the better, longer, more in-depth, kind of personally exhausting conversations we've ever been through, I think. And it was very good. We had consensus on, we didn't vote, we had consensus and discussion on issues about the need to reduce the levy and to abate. We had some, I'll call it minor debate or disagreement on the amount or the number of years to commit to abatement. It appears that the consensus, overall consensus, was to abate for 1. My opinion was, and I think still is, I would prefer to see a longer commitment, but being an ongoing board member, I'll just continue to root for it in the future, that make sure it gets done. But, I think that the differences between what my opinion might be and anybody else's are fairly minor on this issue.
Yeah, I was in the same camp with Mark in that discussion, but I felt comfortable after the discussion because I felt there was a commitment to have that dialogue after the strategic plan was done, and with the understanding that most, we can't speak for every board member, but most board members were more comfortable once the planning was completed and all the input was put together that, all things being equal as we know it, that, the longer-term commitment could be made at that point in time. So I wanted a longer-term commitment, but I'm happy with the fact that there is a commitment to look at it longer-term and to make sure that, when all the facts are on the table, that a prudent and sound decision could be made later in mid-2013.
Yeah, I agree with what's being said. I think there really, wasn't much disagreement about what we're going to do. I think there was agreement about what to do with the levy for next year, and I think that there was pretty easy agreement on doing the 1 year of abatement. I think my concern, I kind of expect that we probably will make a 4-year commitment, but my concern was I'd like to have a fund balance policy in place before we do it, and I'd also like us to do the strategic plan, because I think that's one of the things we'll do during the strategic plan is have a long-range facility plan. And it doesn't make sense to me to commit the funds until we have that in hand.
The issue of the fund balance policy is one that we did spend a bit of time on as well, and in the sense that that's a concern among a lot of the members of our community, and that's been a topic of discussion. I think there was consensus around the idea of using the strategic planning process that's emerging in the coming months as a tool to identify what really should go into a policy that determines fund balance. Fund balance policy is not some sort of detached, disembodied concept, but it's something that's based on facts. It's based on needs. And in that sense, I think it's a much better decision to defer the longer-term kinds of decision-making until we have all the facts on the table and have gone through a very deliberative process that involves the community extensively in determining what our future needs would be as a district. So I'm pleased with the outcome of the discussion and the consensus that we did reach as a board. It was, as Mark said, a very extensive discussion, but it's one that we needed to have as a board.
One other point that was raised during our discussion, too, was comparison to other districts. And while that may provide some general view if we want to line districts up, who's got more and who's got less, it really isn't a valid comparison because every district has their own long-term plan, their own strategic plan, their own needs that have to do with their students and their families, their community, and their taxpayers. So while it's a great gross comparison, it isn't necessarily an apples to apples or an oranges to oranges because people are in various places in terms of their fund balances and their uses for them and their needs in the future. So I think it is important that our strategic plan will be helping to drive our policy.
Anything
Other
else?
comments?
I think we have direction to move forward. I do want to share, since strategic planning came up, I did get an email late this afternoon that they're preparing for the second stage of community involvement, and the surveys are getting ready to go out. So we're preparing email lists and addresses, so communities, the entire community will receive these surveys, and that'll be another opportunity for feedback.
Great. Anything else? Waiver hearing?
I'm going to turn that over to Jane to explain to us.
Okay. This is something you've not done before, and I don't anticipate it'll happen again. I certainly don't think it will in mine. The Illinois School Code mandates that a school district does not exceed a 5% increase annually in its administrative costs. And the definition of administrative costs is very, very specific, and it really only includes the superintendent's office, pretty much. But because last year we had a part-time superintendent who had no benefits and received a relatively low comparative salary, we are going to exceed that 5% increase. We now have a full-time superintendent, full-time benefits, and et cetera. So we need to seek a waiver from the state of Illinois saying we can exceed that 5% for the 1 year only. And so there's a very specific process, which I've outlined for you here. We'll have an application that we'll need to submit. We'll have to have a public hearing, which we plan to have right before the regular board meeting in December. And we have to do some notification to our state legislators, to our union, et cetera, publish the notice in the newspaper, and then file the application by January 18th in order to meet the spring legislative session. So I've tried to outline for you what we need to do and why. So it's...
So, Jane, because I've never done this either.
I have not either.
This is because of the fact that there was an interim here with no benefits, so the difference between his costs versus having a full-time superintendent is over the 5%.
Yeah, because the amount of expenditures in what they define our administrative costs are limited. I mean, the rest of the costs in that line item are office supplies for the district office and some little things. There's not much else.
So other administrator salaries don't go into that calculation?
No.
Just,
No.
so that's
No.
it for sure.
Jane, what's the form of action that the Illinois General Assembly would take in that matter?
They grant the waiver to the school
Through
district.
resolution, or?
I can't tell you exactly. So the state board we apply to the state board takes it to the legislature, making the recommendation. It should be a formality. I mean, they've created the way for us, the roadmap for us to achieve the waiver, because they recognize situations like this do happen, so.
Many interim superintendents last year in the state, so I would imagine many of those districts are probably doing the same thing.
They would have to, yes, they would have to.
Great. So nothing tonight, just the heads up that this is how we go about it.
Yes, and we're going to schedule, just to make sure everybody understands, we're going to schedule the public hearing.
Before the December meeting.
Anything else on the waiver? Okay. Okay, we're ready. We'll move on to action.
Well, we first have the approval of the resolution for estimated tax levy and set the date for tax levy hearing. Jane had put in the supporting articles or documents that go with that. And so this really follows all the extensive talk and information and thought and discussion that you've all had, and listening to the community. So we now bring it to you for a vote and for approval.
Could I have a motion that the Board of Education approves the resolution regarding the estimated amounts necessary to be levied for the year 2012 and establishes the 2012 tax levy hearing to be held on December 18th at 6:30 PM?
So moved.
Second.
Few comments?
Any discussion or comments?
Just want to point out the fact that we are levying $2 million less than what we received under the 2011 levy for operating funds. In addition to that, we are abating the approximate 1.2 debt service payment for the fiscal year 14. So it's about a $3 million difference from what we received for this fiscal year for the next fiscal year. Also, under truth and taxation, we would have to hold a public hearing, publish a notice, et cetera, if we were exceeding by 5% or more this year's levy over last year's extensions or what we received. We're going to follow that process anyway, even though we're levying less. We're still going to follow the truth and taxation requirements and publish the black box and hold a public hearing, just because we feel that it's what we should do. We've done the same thing the last 2 years, even though we didn't exceed the 5%. So it's going to be our normal procedure to follow truth and taxation process.
I think that makes a lot of sense to be consistent
Absolutely.
across the years, regardless of the numbers.
I just thought it was worth repeating from the document I have in front of me, that the levy in 2011 totaled $16,131,000 and $131,010, right?
Correct.
And the levy that we're voting on now is $12,953,000?
Correct.
Okay, big difference. I just want people to know that.
That includes that 1 year
Service.
debt abatement we just talked about, so.
So intentional deficit spending.
Strategic.
Strategic, good word.
It is intentional.
That's the word of the hour.
It is intentional and strategic.
Obviously, the expenses we anticipate are estimated at this point, but as I recall from our discussion at the Committee of the Whole, that was deficit spending of approximately $800,000 for next year.
I think it's more than that now.
On the worksheet.
It's more than 800?
Yeah.
It's,
We'll be starting budget development right after the first of the year, so we'll truly know what our budget
The
is.
neighborhood, whatever.
I think the bigger part of that discussion was, we've made the commitment to be looking at our expenditures. While that may impact staffing over the years, we had discussed the fact that they would be very thoughtful with staffing plans, looking at attrition, looking at number of students. And so I think the bigger piece of that is really looking at reduction in expenses and what our systems are. And I had given you the, for instance, of the different ways of communication. Constant Contact versus Alert Now versus Power School, and just looking for some redundancies that way.
Any other comments or questions?
So before December's board meeting, we have 2 public hearings, one on the waiver and one on the levy? Okay.
Okay. We have a roll call?
Yes. Susan Ryder.
Yes?
Mark Berry.
yes.
Leanne Charlot.
Yes.
Eric Wagoner.
Yes.
Al Pfeifhouse, yes. Terry Carney.
Yes.
Mary Jane Brady.
Yes. Great. Okay. And we will move to the consent agenda. Every month, the board can choose to place items that are recurring, such as the approval of previous minutes, annual responsibilities, such as the appointment of school treasurer to the next year, or terms of regulatory nature that must by law be approved by the board. These items can be combined into one motion and passed together as part of a consent agenda. The board regularly screens its consent agenda each month and removes motions from that if in the board's judgment might otherwise require discussion or public comment.
So
The-
moved.
Great. Second, the items included tonight on the consent agenda are the regular meeting minutes for October 23rd, 2012, the closed session meeting minutes for October 23rd, 2012, the special town hall meeting minutes for October 23rd, 2012, the special meeting minutes for November 1st, 2012, the destruction of closed session tapes for May 24th, 2011, the P-card report, the bills payable, the treasurer's report, and the activity reports. Any questions or discussion on any of those items?
Nope.
We have roll call?
Al Pfeifhaus, yes. Eric Wagner.
Yes.
Leanne Charlotte.
Yes.
Mark Berry.
Yes.
Susan Ryder.
Yes?
Mary Jane Brady.
Yes.
Terry Carney.
Yes.
Okay. New business.
I just thought I would share that if you have, which you did, review the minutes, you'll notice that they're starting to be a lot more detailed. Liz has really been working hard on that, spending a lot of time with her door closed to really go through and listen to the tapes and sort through. So I wanted to commend her for doing that. I think it helps in building relationships in the community. And when people miss meetings, they can then read the minutes and know what happened. So that's the only new business.
How about televising?
Oh, we will be televising our meetings, beginning in January, both the committee of the whole and our regular board meetings. And that's something we'll be taking a look at. Even though we'll be taping here, we'll be looking at the format sometimes for our committee of the whole meetings to really allow some good discussion. So beginning January, unless we're in one of our schools or the village hall is not accessible, we will be going live with our meetings.
Right, so in general, not a special meeting that may be, a short meeting called for a special, some special item that needs to be dealt with in that way. But in general, the committee of the whole will be taped if they're here. We may not be able to make that happen if we have to meet in another place.
And I thought when we talked about this, we said that the action meeting would be televised live, but the committee of the whole meeting, for some reason, was going to be filmed and then available on the website later. Is that still the case, or it's going to be live too?
Actually, they've worked out the schedule, so right now, we can have everything go live unless, there may be times that we might just have to tape and be posting them later. But at this particular point, our two helpers are really able to tape and put live at the same time.
And our regular business meetings will all still continue to be taped live shown live and taped, but the only difference will be if we couldn't get it done for a committee of the whole. But in general, most of those will be that way, so that will be good.
Good news.
Any old business?
I just wanted to remind Mark that he's got the delegate meeting on Saturday, but they changed the time. Did you notice that?
I haven't even opened
It's
it.
Saturday morning now, and I will meet you Saturday morning and make sure you get to your meeting on time, so.
That will allow you to attend the 4 o'clock meeting easier.
I will get you all situated at your delegate meeting, which again, as Barb Tony, our IESB rep, had suggested, if we attend this meeting, she's really would like all of you to be recognized for the hard work that you've put in for all of the board workshops you've taken on being good board members. So, great, thank you for volunteering for that, Mark.
Any other old business?
Want to
Terrific.
talk about the school board conference this
Um,
weekend?
Well, it is exciting. We have 4 of us going to the school board conference this weekend. Let's see, all 4 of us are going to go to all-day Friday conferences. I think we're attending 3 between the 4 of us. So that's terrific. And there'll be some great things in the exhibit hall, some chances to meet with some other board members from around the state and some other administrators. So I went last year for the first time and thought it was an incredible learning experience, and a nice social experience, too. It's nice to be able to share ideas with board members from other schools and to hear some of the things that their administrators say. So I think it's really exciting that we're all going to be there, and
And then, Jay, the four are yourself and Mark and
Leanne and Eric.
Eric, okay. Great.
There will be legislators also attending this conference this weekend. They will be sitting on several panels regarding legislation that's upcoming. Sheila Simon will be there talking about the school consolidation issue and presenting the solutions that all the town hall meetings from that last year presented. If you have not heard of that, the four of you may want to go to that. I testified at one of the hearings for that last year, and there were a lot of very good suggestions on shared resources, and many communities testified to the importance of keeping their small districts within their community to really maintain their community flavor. So it would be a session well worth going to.
Anything else?
That's it.
All right. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Yes.
Could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Meeting adjourned.